The Italian Wine Podcast is the community-driven platform for Italian wine geeks around the world. Support the show by donating at ItalianWinepodcast.com. Donate €5 or more and we'll send you a copy of our latest book, My Italian Grape Geek Journal, absolutely free. To get your free copy of My Italian Grape Geek Journal, click Support Us at ItalianWinepodcast.com or wherever you get your pods. Grazie mille.
Welcome to Masterclass US Market with me, Juliana Colangelo. This show has been designed to demystify the US market for Italian wineries through interviews with experts in sales and distribution, social media, communications, and so much more. We will quiz each of our esteemed guests at the end of each episode to solidify the lessons that we've learned. So sharpen your pencils, get out your notebooks, and join us each week to learn more about the US market. Hello, welcome to Masterclass US Wine Market. Today, I am thrilled to welcome Dana Peixotto to the Italian Wine Podcast. Dana is a wine educator based in Seattle. She holds a degree in winemaking as well as her diploma with WSET, and she's also an Italian Wine Ambassador. Welcome to the show, Dana. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you, Juliana. I'm thrilled to be here.
Of course. So you hold quite a number of degrees in wine. So talk us a little bit about how you got so involved in wine education and what led you to pursuing so many different great degrees in the wine industry.
Excellent question. 5 years ago, I found myself with 2 children under the age of 2 and a very aggressive career in fintech. And I was just searching for something to make myself feel a little bit more like myself, something to be passionate about. I decided to enroll in WSET Level 1 locally here. Just took a little afternoon class while my husband watched the kids. Fell in love with it. Ended up enrolling in WSET Level 2. And both of those classes took place at my local community college. And while I was there, I discovered they had a winemaking program. Ended up doing a tour and enrolling in the program. And while doing that, ended up taking Level 3, French wine scholar. The pandemic hit, so the degree took me quite a while to finish. And in that time, I was able to do diploma as well. And I just found myself kind of on this wagon or this wheel, and I couldn't stop. And I kind of have been collecting knowledge ever since. My goal really was to open a wine bar in my neighborhood, kind of a family-centric wine bar. And I didn't feel like I could speak fluidly or comfortably about wine to the average consumer. And that's how I started. And I just haven't been able to stop yet.
Amazing. I love that. So it kind of just caught the wine bug as a hobby initially, and it's obviously grown into much more, which is really exciting. And I love what you said about kind of a family-centric wine space. And I really want to dive in today's episode about the Pacific Northwest and Seattle for Italian wine specifically. I think it's really interesting to get hyper-focused in these podcasts about what's happening in various parts of the U.S. As we know, it's such a complex market, and from coast to coast, it's very different. So we're really excited to hear your expertise and experience being based in Seattle. So some of our takeaways for today's episode are, number one, what is the market right now for Italian wine in Seattle and the larger Pacific Northwest? Some of the trending varietals, regions, etc. What are some of the future opportunities for Italian wine in this market? And then finally, we also want to learn about how we can make Italian wine more approachable through education. That's something we're constantly trying to do better. So I love hearing different perspectives. So for starters, Dana, just give us an overview. What's happening right now in Seattle and the greater Pacific Northwest in the Italian wine category?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. The Pacific Northwest, it's not unsimilar to Italy in that it's very regional. Each of the cities are so isolated everywhere else. It takes 3 hours to get to Vancouver, it takes 3 hours to get to Portland, and then your next closest thing is something like Boise, 8 hours away. So our areas have developed pretty localized and regionally, very similar to the way Italian regions have developed over the years. And with that, we've kind of have this local push to consume things locally, whether that be beer, local spirits, local food, attending local restaurants and grocery stores. And that like kind of at a macro level has taken place across Portland, Seattle, Vancouver. But then within that larger Pacific Northwest area, we've kind of got these, more meso. We've got Portland, Seattle, Vancouver, and then we have like these individual neighborhoods where things get really localized. But because of that, our wine cultures have kind of developed differently. While they've developed simultaneously, the Portland wine area is much different than Seattle or Washington. Our climates are different. The wine growing regions are different. So as over the last 50 years or so, as the wine culture has developed, we've developed different tastes in wine due to the specificity of the grapes we're growing here. Again, unlike Italy. So in Oregon, we get a lot of grapes that are cooler climate, more temperate climate. We've got Pinot Noir, Pinot Gris, some Chardonnay going on down there. And up here we have a more continental climate, much more continental. So we've got some bolder, more structured tannic wines, Syrahs, Cabs. We do have some Chardonnays, Rieslings, and some whites going on as well. But that means our tastes have developed differently. So what people are interested in drinking up where I'm located tends to be different than Portland. And again, same for Vancouver. I haven't spent a lot of time up there since the pandemic, but similar as well. So when it comes to Italian wine, you're going to see slight differences in the types of Italian wines that people are drinking as well. But because of that locality, the market tends to focus more on the Pacific Northwest wines and causes a little bit of a barrier to entry for Italian wines to make it into the marketplace here.
Because there's so many domestic. Yeah, that's common on the West Coast in the US, right? In California as well. You're not just up against every other imported wine in the world. You're up against the local production. And it sounds like there's a lot of local pride in the Pacific Northwest for the wines of Washington and Oregon.
Yes, there absolutely is. And, I was out at a restaurant last night and, it was an Italian influenced newer restaurant. And while the wine list absolutely had Italian wines and some interesting ones, we're starting to see some branching out into pulling more interesting wines into the list of Italian varietals. You had an equal number. So if, let's say you had 10 whites on the list, you've got another 10 Pacific Northwest whites to match that. Same for the reds. So that pride in the local wine drinking is definitely prevalent.
Absolutely. So where do you think for Italian wine specifically is the right strategy? Is it to go with wines that might match the profiles of some of the locally produced Pacific Northwest wines and try to fit those profiles that people are already familiar with, or to go more esoteric and unique to the regions? Like, where do you think let's talk about varietals, regions. In Italy, there's opportunities for the category in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different spots. I mean, absolutely matching something that someone is already familiar with would be an easier entry point. We've also got a big push for, what we'll call natural wine, low intervention, more adventurous types of wines. We've seen a lot of pet nats and skin contacts and orange wines in the last few years that people are interested in trying. So I think also marketing and advertising the fact that a lot of Italian wine is just naturally low intervention, and natural wine is a big selling point for them.
So leading into the low intervention, natural leaning styles of wine, do you feel like, there's an opportunity there for the Pacific Northwest market?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in my neighborhood alone, we've had 2 or 3 natural wine bottle shops pop up. They're popping up quite a bit, and the wine lists and restaurants are also kind of starting to showcase some of that.
Right. Talk to us about just the format of how people are drinking wine in, let's say, in Seattle specifically, as the biggest metro market in the Pacific Northwest. Is it wine bars, more casual, fine dining? Like, what are you seeing right now in your city be popular when it comes to how consumers are engaging with wine?
That's a good question. We are, in general, the Northwest is a pretty laid back culturally. So there is a lot of casual wine drinking, wine bars, a few more like tasting rooms popping up in the neighborhoods happens quite a bit. Backyard get-togethers, especially when the weather is nice, is a pretty big place for it as well, especially since the pandemic. People are, I feel, drinking less and drinking something, following that natural path. We get a lot of no low alcohol. So while people are drinking less, I think there's a more of a focus on what they're drinking and where they're drinking it. We have a few giant wine bars that you may go into, but there tend to be smaller corner type situations with 5 to 10 tables.
So, and just staying on that topic around the consumer in the Pacific Northwest, as an educator, Dana, what's your approach to educating around Italian wine?
Yeah, so I think, and this is something we focused a bit on in VIA as well, is there is just so much to know about Italian wine. There's so many different varieties, there's so many different regions, there's so many different climates, and really helping the consumer just understand what they like and how they can make those ties to Italian wine. And make simplifying it for them. My goal is really to empower the average consumer to say, hey, I like this. I'm okay with liking this. Pinot's my favorite, and giving them the tools to figure out that, okay, well, maybe I might like this Ruquet over here, or this Crier Rouge, or something that draws a similar line, and helping them figure out how to do
that. Italian Wine Podcast, part of the Mama Jumbo Shrimp family.
So Dana, you mentioned earlier that low intervention and more natural leaning wines are a good opportunity for Italian wines in the Pacific Northwest and Seattle. But let's talk a little more specifically about specific grapes or specific regions when it comes to introducing people to new Italian wines. You mentioned, people want to know what they're drinking and know they're going to like it. So introducing Italian wines in the context of a wine they may already know, such as a Washington State Pinot Gris, for example. So on that front, where do you think there are some opportunities for specific Italian grapes and regions in the Pacific Northwest?
So that's a good question. When we talk about Oregon, we've got a lot of Pinot, we've got a lot of Pinot Gris. So I think some of the lighter bodied styles would do well there. I think we could do some Ruquet, some Etna Rossos, some Longue Nebbiolos. For their Pinot Gris, I think they could start drinking some things like Fiano, maybe some Trebbiano de Lugana, some of the slightly more full-bodied, but not overwhelmingly so, kind of match their palates down there. As for Washington, we do like a bold red, and there's a lot of options in Italy. You've got Aglianico, Lagrange, Sagrantino. I was drinking some Sagrantino the other day that was like, my husband would absolutely love this. He loves to be knocked over by his red wines, and there's some that really match that.
There sure are. Definitely, like you said, from the South, there's some good opportunities there.
Absolutely. And, we do have a lot of Riesling up here too. So even moving up towards Alto Adige and some of the other wines up in the north, kind of bordering up on the north border, would work well as well for both, I think, due to that climate.
Okay. That makes sense. So there's definitely, seems like, range of variety from bolder reds to match the Cabernet drinker to maybe some of the northern Italian whites to match like the drinker that's more into Pinot Gris or Riesling. So some nice opportunities across the board. So Dana, talk to us a little bit about what you're doing specifically with education in an Italian wine in Seattle.
What I'm doing is really trying to help the consumer feel comfortable and not feel overwhelmed. So when I go into a workshop or do a tasting, I really give the client a set of general guidelines to help them when they're out and about, either buying wine at a grocery store or in a restaurant, and helping them say, okay, I can't remember all of the rules and the pairing rules and what I should be doing, but I do know something, what grows together goes together. So, okay, I'm making this dish. Well, I could at least grab an Italian red to go with this pasta that I'm making, or some kind of easy lines for them to draw and understand from a high level what may work for them without knowing the intricacies of Italian wine.
Okay, very cool. So really like understanding what their knowledge base is before you dive into your presentation to really meet the consumer where they're at in terms of what they're looking for.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't focus a lot on the wine drinker that is heavily educated. I feel like there's quite a bit of education out there. We've got WSET, we've got the Court of Masters, Sommelier. We've got all these programs that are very well established and do a great job of educating people that are passionate. And my goal is just to get more people in and drinking wine and feeling comfortable doing that.
And what formats are you utilizing? Like, where are you doing tastings? Like, how are you meeting these consumers?
That's a good question. It's kind of been a mix. I tend to do workshops with other local small businesses. I have a close relationship with a master gardener in the neighborhood. So we've done some, herb gardener pairings with wines and what you would do those herbs and how you'd put them in the food and then tie that to the wine. We've done some harvest, it's harvest time. What are people drinking at harvest and why? So kind of very seasonal and depending on what's happening in the community, kind of tying that back to the locality of consumption.
Okay. So working with small businesses and local communities to do various seasonal tastings. Very cool. Anything on the horizon, you would say, for Italian wine in Seattle and the Pacific Northwest? Like anything you're looking forward to in terms of events coming up or tastings or just anything else that you'd like to share?
I don't know of any specific events coming up, but I definitely am seeing wine lists get more adventurous. So I'm very excited for that. A lot more popping up around and options to try by the glass, different things instead of just your run-of-the-mill Sangios that you know. So that's pretty exciting. And I'm hoping that the rest of the community will be excited about that as well.
Great. Awesome. Sounds like more adventurous lists, more opportunity for Italian wine. So we like to hear that. Well, Dana, it's been great to have you here today. As we wind down, we do our rapid fire quiz at the end of every episode. So if you can do your best to answer these questions in 1 or 2 sentences, that would be great. So question 1, what is your number 1 tip for mastering the U.S. wine market?
Understanding kind of the cultural values and the setup of each community. We're different, very regional. Each region is quite different. So understanding the outlook, what people are looking for, and how people shop and drink and consume.
Okay. So really, really understanding the market. And that's what hopefully this podcast is helping with. Question number 2, what is something you might have told your younger professional self about working in the wine industry?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. About 20 years ago, I worked in a wine bar as a hostess, and I was just blown away by the ability of the professionals to speak fluidly and comfortably about wine. And I thought it was completely unattainable. So I would have just told myself, be patient. It is accessible, it is attainable, and it just takes work to understand it.
Yeah, have patience. And finally, we're all traveling a lot in this industry. What's one of your favorite travel hacks?
Oh my gosh, pack light and just, enjoy the culture. Everywhere is so different. So I try to eat, shop, drink locally. I don't need to bring a lot. I need to just embed myself in the culture and have a good time.
Great advice. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dana. How can our listeners follow along with you and everything you're up to in the Seattle and Pacific Northwest with Italian wine?
I am on Instagram as Left on the Vine. So you can follow me there, what I'm up to, some of my cheat sheets for dissecting wine and what you like and, how that may relate to other wines.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks again for joining us today, Dana.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for joining me today. Stay tuned each week for new episodes of Masterclass US Wine Market with me, Juliana Colangelo. And remember, if you enjoyed today's show, hit the like and follow buttons wherever you get your podcasts.